who are the people who we should probably kick out from the gene pool? Let's find out, starting with number 6, a sad meatball. Social media influencer Deja Blackwell, better known as Meatball, a name she apparently chose herself, joined a crowd of looters as they stormed Philadelphia's Center City neighborhood. The mass looting occurred on a Tuesday evening in September 2023. The group, mainly consisting of teenagers, targeted several businesses, including Apple, Lululemon, Foot Locker, and a liquor store. Meatball posted videos where she laughed and cheered on the other looters in her Instagram stories. She yelled, "Free iPhones," when the looters stormed the Apple store and fled with iPhones, tablets, and other electronics. Blackwell's social media posts helped the police identify her role and location amid the chaos and determine the whereabouts of her accomplices. Meatball was arrested and charged. Meatball was unapologetic in her videos and challenged the police to arrest her. So, they did. Then she was crying in her mugshot. Interim Chief of Police John Stanford told journalists that the looters were taking advantage of the anger surrounding the decision of the Eddie Irizarry case. Protests erupted in Philadelphia after municipal judge Wendy Pugh dismissed all charges against police officer Mark Dial after a fatal traffic stop. 52 other people were arrested for their involvement in the lootings. And why would you ever challenge the police to arrest you? Especially after posting videos letting them know where to find you. For what it's worth, Meatball did change her tune and was apologetic after her arrest in her interview with NBC Philadelphia. But only time will tell that she was actually apologetic or just doing this to get a lighter sentence. Number 5. Rich, strange tastes. Law enforcement raided the yacht of retired Colorado doctor Scott Anthony Burke to find weapons, contraband, and evidence of an opulent lifestyle. Burke practiced medicine in Denver, but upon retirement, spent part of the year at his property in the exclusive Ocean Reef Club in Key Largo, Florida, a private gated community where its wealthy members pay millions of dollars for privacy. The club offers extreme security measures so that members can enjoy their waterfront homes away from curious onlookers and the prying eyes of the general public. It has a private airport and even fingerprints visitors. Many describe it as a place where the wealthy can do whatever they want, using their privilege to break rules. Families rarely stay at the club, compared to people who arrive in their private jets to party for a week and then leave. Locals have observed that the community hosts strange individuals who come for short-term, luxurious stays. As well as residing in the Ocean Reef Club, Burke also owned a $2.3 million mansion in Englewood, Colorado, and a luxury yacht, the Jess Con, registered in the Cayman Islands. The Jess Con was a 70-foot motor yacht with multiple decks, guest cabins, an owner's cabin, and a hot tub, and it could accommodate 2 crew members and 8 guests. The boat had a history of running aground, but avoided significant damage. After traveling to Nantucket, law enforcement received a call about a woman possibly overdosing on the Jess Con. Authorities located Burke's vessel within the Nantucket Harbor anchorage, where they found a woman in need of medical assistance who they took to a nearby hospital. But officers encountered much more than a medical emergency when they arrived. They found several illegal substances, weapons, and ammunition aboard the yacht. Several ladies of the night were also aboard the vessel at the time. Burke claimed to have all the appropriate licenses, but they were issued outside of the state of Florida and expired a year ago. So officers arrested Burke and charged him with multiple charges such as possessing a firearm and possessing Class A and Class B contraband. As of this video, the case is ongoing. And doesn't this almost sound like one of those horror movies where rich people are like hunting homeless people or something? They have their big compound and get-togethers, and there's like one random person who doesn't belong but was invited and they have to get away. We're not saying it's that, but it's totally that. Number 4. The Gang of Kids. A group of teens decided to relentlessly go after gas station cashier Leah Johnston. One teen felt that he needed to put his hands on her so his friends could steal from behind the register. The teen bought his accomplices time to raid the Washington State gas station's shelves for vapes, cigarettes, cash, and candy, and all the while laughed at Johnston while she tried to fight him off. The 6 teenagers wore matching black hoodies while pillaging the cigarette case behind the cash register. As they ran out, they dropped most of their haul and left with less than $100 from the register. The teens fled the scene in a stolen Kia and Hyundai. Law enforcement recovered the stolen vehicles shortly after the incident. While Johnston knew that similar raids had occurred throughout her city, but she never imagined one would happen at her store. She was in physical pain from the experience, but she confessed that her pride also took a beating as well. As of the release of this video, the local police are still investigating the case, and there's a $1,000 reward for information on the 6 suspects. So these guys went after some poor lady and then dropped half their stuff on the way out? It's bad enough that it even happened, but does the fact that they dropped most of it make the situation worse or better? Let us know in the comments. Number 3, squatting tenants. First-time homeowners Jessica Davis and her husband had to fight to evict a serial squatter who refused to leave their home. The Texas-based couple closed on their 4-bedroom home, which had a pool and was only 20 miles outside Dallas. Then, Jessica found out she would have to relocate for her job, but the couple didn't want to sell their home so soon after buying it. So they decided to lease the property and hoped to hold on to it for at least 2 more years. Jessica put an ad on Zillow and Apartments.com, and Heather Schwab quickly contacted her. Heather told Jessica that she was moving from Colorado to Texas with her 17-year-old son and had been staying in a hotel in the area while they looked for accommodation. The potential renter stated that she was using her friend's Zillow account and claimed her actual name was Reyes Rubel. Heather claimed that serious crime was going on near the hotel and asked if she could move into the Davis' home early to get away from the area. So Jessica agreed to let Heather move in early, even though her rental payments were still being processed. Zillow also requires people to use their social security number when running background checks, so Jessica was confident she had found a reliable tenant. Of course, Heather's payments bounced, and when the couple tried to get into their home, they discovered that the garage door was dismantled and all other entry points locked. Jessica searched the name Reyes Rubal on several background check sites and found the name was associated with a 72-year-old man. She also investigated the phone number she used to contact her tenant and found that Reyes Rubal was the name of Heather Schwab's father. This prompted Jessica to research Heather Schwab and found news links from 2018 about her arrest and conviction on felony identity theft charges in connection to a case of serial squatting. Previous landlords accused Heather and her husband, William, of renting and living in their properties while never paying rent. Heather's serial squatting landed her a 6-year prison sentence, but she was released after spending 16 months behind bars. Jessica struggled to get local law enforcement to help her evict Heather, but the cops said their hands were tied because it was considered a civil matter. She told them that Heather had used a false identity to lease the property, but authorities told her she couldn't report identity fraud as Heather didn't steal Jessica's identity. So Jessica hired a lawyer and filed a 3-day eviction notice. When Heather didn't respond to the notice, the landlord followed up with a 30-day eviction notice, after which Jessica hoped the police would have enough information to arrest her. While Heather enjoyed the luxury of staying in the couple's home for free, Jessica and her husband had to pay the bills. They risked losing the house to foreclosure and had to move in with family to save money. Jessica had the city turn off the home's water, prompting someone under the name of Heather Rubal to file an application for the water to be restored, which the city granted. Her husband attempted to access the home through a storm door and recorded portions of the scene inside where cleaning products, a ladder, and home improvement tools were strewn across the floor. He asked if anyone was there and turned to see a woman staring at him. He confronted her and her son, who had trashed the primary bedroom with beer cans. The mother and son finally fled the property before the eviction notice ended. The Rowlett Police Department told CBS News they plan to review the matter to look for potential legal recourse against the family. What a nightmare. And you know Jessica was thinking, if only I'd done a background check before this happened, because she should have done the work before there was a problem. Number 2, discovering squatters. Handyman Flash Shelton filmed the moment he got revenge on squatters who took up residence in his mother's North Carolina home and got 3 million views on YouTube. Squatters moved into Shelton's mother's vacant home and refused to leave. He had put the house up for rent after his father passed away, as his mother couldn't live there alone. A woman who worked as a prison guard asked about the home, but Shelton denied her application as she had no money or credit. Shelton planned to continue looking for a tenant, but the soon-to-be squatter already had a truckload of her belongings on its way to the property. She explained to Shelton that her things were delivered by accident and she would deal with it, but that was a lie. And soon, the home was full of additional squatters and furniture. furniture. The police said they couldn't enter the house as it seemed there were people living there, meaning Shelton would have to go through the court system. Aware that going through the courts could take months, Shelton decided to take matters into his own hands. So he drew up a lease where he listed himself as the home's resident, even though he doesn't live in North Carolina, and drove to the property. He waited outside until they left, then let himself in and installed security cameras. Accompanied by his dogs and a firearm, he confronted the unwelcome residents as they returned. He told them they had until midnight to get everything out, or he was going to do it himself, and caught the whole thing on camera. So the family grabbed their things and split. Shelton posted the video of the incident, which people across the country used as inspiration for dealing with their own squatter situations. His tactic was dangerous, but it worked. Remember that if you have properties, check up on them frequently if they're unoccupied, or you might find yourself in a situation. If you're enjoying this video, be sure to stay tuned for our past video to learn about the types of people who are wolves in sheep's clothing. Number 1, final boss of squatting. And we have even more, you guessed it, squatters. Serial squatter Tamisha Holmes Bay fled a Texas home after faking a lease, changing the locks, and insisting she and her family were entitled to stay there. The actual homeowner, Linda Jiang, went to the property to do yard work when she discovered a family of 5 living inside the house. She asked them to leave, but they refused. And when Jiang returned to the property later on, she found out they'd changed all the locks. Holmes Bay claimed she never trespassed on the property and had signed a lease and paid $6,000 to live there. The fake lease listed the names of all the squatters, but did not include Jiang or her husband's names or information. So Jiang called the police, who told her that the case was a civil matter and there was nothing they could do to help. They said this despite the fact that the family of 5 had broken into Jiang's house and were trespassing. The squatters had lived in her house for over a month when Jiang decided to contact the local news to raise awareness about the situation. A local news reporter confronted Holmes Bay, who said she had no idea what was happening. She mentioned the fake lease and stated that she had moved to Texas from California with her family to start a new life. The reporter had discovered that Tamisha's husband had a warrant out for his arrest, so when she brought it up, the serial squatter Tamisha claimed she didn't know about it and said that the reporter was violating her rights to privacy and that she was going to the UN. Then she claimed to have filed a police report where law enforcement sided with her. Bet that report was pretty intimidating, right? According to public records, Holmes Bay had actually spent decades in Texas and during that time had faced 3 evictions. When the police learned that the document was forged, they gave Holmes Bay and her family 2 days to leave the property or they would face trespassing charges. Jiang returned 2 days later to find the doors were unlocked and the family was gone. Who's someone you'd think would never scam anyone? Would it be Philip Ryle, an Amish ice cream store owner? Or would it be Paul Rinfret, a seemingly trustworthy fund manager? Let's get right to it. Number 4, Wall Street Ponzi. After starting his investment fund, Plandome Partners LLC, Paul Rinfret boasted about how his investment strategy earned them triple-digit returns. Each month since 2012, they claimed that they had consistently made more money. Paul Rinfret was a man with a luxurious palate, spending over $19 million on cigars, alcohol, cars, house renovations, you name it, and he bought it. He used the money to buy his dry cleaning, gas, and other daily expenses. Paul even spent $30,000 on a venue called the Water Club in Manhattan so his son could host a red carpet-themed engagement party. Of course, we all want to give our families the best. And how else do we do that if not with money? The issue was that Paul did all this without spending a dime of his own money. On September 29th, 2020, Paul was sentenced to 5 years in prison for running a $19 million Ponzi scheme from 2016 to 2019. For returning viewers, you already know this, but for new viewers, a Ponzi scheme is when you pay current investors with the money used by new investors. It's similar to a pyramid scheme, except there's no recruiting under the pretenses of selling things to make money. Paul promised investors that if they put their money into Plandome Partners, he would invest their money to trade futures contracts tied to S&P 500. He claimed that he had created a foolproof trading algorithm and would only take 25% of net profits. In reality, he only used a small portion of their money and the rest to fund his luxury lifestyle. On top of that, the little money he actually did put to trading, he would often end up losing money. He would create fake statements that looked like his clients were making big bucks to stop them from pulling out. Overall, he scammed 6 investors out of their money. If that wasn't bad enough, he also opened accounts with a brokerage firm using the names of his family members, one being his son, John, who Paul had paid for his engagement party. Another was a family member who had passed away in 2014, and Paul had continued pretending to be this family member until 2016, long after they had passed. Paul's family claimed they were unaware of the fraud committed under their names. Instead, they thought of him as a brilliant investor. They lived in the lap of luxury, having the ability to spend $50,000 on a Hamptons vacation rental and over $400,000 on restaurants, jewelry, and shoes. He used his investors' money to pay for tanning services, student loans, car washes, and other personal expenses as well. Paul also transferred $845,000 to 2 companies controlled by his wife Denise, one of them being the Rinfret Group, an interior design company co-run by their daughter Missy. Denise and Missy had to write a statement claiming they had no idea that Paul had earned money fraudulently. Along with this, Paul sent $325,000 to his son John and $675,000 to his son-in-law. His family claimed they were under the impression that he had legitimately earned all of this money. Paul Rinfret is still in jail, having served 2 out of the 5-year sentence he received. After his prison time, he'll still have 2 more years of supervised release. He had to forfeit over $20 million and pay over $12 million in restitution for his targets. His home sits, overtaken by vines, foreclosed after his arrest. Having once had a loving family, his now ex-wife Denise and their children no longer speak to him. After living at the top for many years, Paul Rinfret is a perfect example of the higher you sit, the harder you fall. Number 3, scamming exec. Now let's take a trip down to Sydney, Australia, where we can find 2 women under trial for a $40 million scam connected to NAB, the Australian National Bank. An unknown whistleblower sent executives at the bank an outline claiming that Rosemary Rogers had been receiving money from the chief executive of an events company named Human Group, Helen Rosamond, for years. Rosemary, former chief of staff at NAB, turned herself into the police after suspicion of the scam. During the investigation, Rosemary struck a deal to decrease her sentence by providing information proving that Helen was involved. What a way to break up a friendship, but what they discovered since then is crucial. Allegedly, Helen offered gifts and money, intending to leave the bill to be paid by the bank. Helen made invoices to look like NAB expenses, and Rosemary ensured that the bank staff paid all the fraudulent invoices. Helen was known by all her friends to be quite generous. One of her more considerable expenses included a $620,000 trip where she took family and friends to America and had them travel by yachts and private jets. Helen bought Rosemary a luxury car and a boat. She also spent over $30,000 on a fuel tab, a friend's 70th birthday bash, and a $132,000 trip to the Rocky Mountains. The largest bill was $2.2 million, so Rosemary could buy a house and send $700,000 into Helen's pocket. They marked it as an expense for Project Eagle, the code name for the onboarding event of Mike Baird as a NAB executive in 2017. Prosecutors think Human Group had nothing to do with the Project Eagle event. While Rosemary pleaded guilty to accepting bribes, 47-year-old Helen Rosamond pleaded not guilty to 60 counts of bank fraud and 32 counts of attempting to obtain an advantage by deception. Rosemary has since been on trial and sentenced to 8 years in prison. Helen's trial, on the other hand, was set for 2021. In August, her counsel applied to extend the date, stating that she could afford a legal team because the National Australian Bank had frozen all of her assets. This application was approved, and her trial date was set for early 2022. As of the upload of this video, the trial has yet to take place, but Helen's lawyer has stated that he plans to prove that Rosemary had taken all the benefits for herself. Number 2, Amish scamming. When you think of the ice cream man, what comes to mind? A man in an ice cream truck ready to pull out whichever ice cream you want. Or maybe a smiling guy behind a counter, scooping whatever flavor you ask. Does it involve scamming families who go to your church out of millions of dollars? Philip Elvin Reel, the 68-year-old owner of Trickling Springs Creamery, scammed hundreds of Amish and Mennonite investors out of $60 million over 10 years. In what was known as the largest Ponzi scheme in Pennsylvania, Philip used the fact that he and his targets were part of the same religion to build trust with his investors. This is commonly known as affinity fraud, an investment scam that preys on members of similar identifying groups such as religion or ethnic groups. It's safe to say that people tend to trust those who worship at the same church. Those communities tend to build a group willing to help one another, but Philip wasn't interested in anyone but himself. He had lured investors to a fund that made out loans to Trickling Springs Creamery, Philip's dairy farm. Here, they sold milk, cheese, yogurt, and ice cream. Philip led investors under the pretenses that Trickling Springs was profitable, and in reality, the creamery was on its way downhill. Philip had used new investors' money to pay off old investors, and by December 2019, they had lost $59.7 million. Talk about milking his friends out of their money. In February of 2020, Philip pleaded guilty to conspiracy and fraud charges having to do with the Ponzi scheme. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison with 3 years of supervised release. Along with the jail time, the judge ordered him to pay a little less than $60 million in restitution, and he also had to forfeit $59 million along with the 2 real estate properties. It shows that you always have more to lose when you commit fraud. Trickling Springs Creamery filed for bankruptcy in September 2019 and shut its doors later that December. Just 9 months later, the owners of South Mountain Creamery, a dairy farm in Maryland, announced that they had acquired Trickling Springs, revamping their decor and merchandise by adding a new artisanal products like freshly baked bread and local honey. It's good to see that the creamery still has the potential to thrive in new hands. Number 1. Vulnerable vets. 68-year-old Scott Cohn was living large in his California mansion, knowing that he had been scamming thousands of veterans into high-interest loans. Scott and his 3 co-conspirators created a corporation called Future Income Payments LLC, which promised investors up to 8% profit on their investments. During this time, the scam artists were reaching out to veterans in financial distress and offering lump sums in exchange for the rights to their monthly pensions. Unbeknownst to their targets, their contracts would end with tons of hidden fees and up to 240% interest on their loans. This led to the $300 million Ponzi scheme and the financial ruin of roughly 13,000 people. Scott was getting into trouble for years before the giant Ponzi scheme. In 1988, he opened 47 businesses that have since shut their doors. Then, in 2006, he was charged with 3 felonies for selling counterfeit computer parts. Scott pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 15 months in prison. Shortly after was when he started his biggest scam. He started Future Income Payments LLC and 20 other companies to run his complex Ponzi scheme. Scott had ordered that they use late-night advertising and the internet to reach more people. He even had one of his co-conspirators host a 90-minute seminar called Social Security Facts 101. During this seminar, he convinced investors to allow Black Harbor Wealth Management, one of Scott's businesses, to be their financial advisor. He claimed that he had heard all the horror stories and promised this wouldn't be one. Unfortunately, he forgot to mention the 60 clients in South Carolina that his company had already become a horror story to. Black Harbor played a significant role in this scheme by being the primary way of gaining investors. Once investors put their money in the hands of Black Harbor, Scott would use it to give out loans to struggling veterans coming to Future Income Payments. One alleged target was a veteran trying to pay for his wife's cancer treatment. He originally went to Scott for a $5,000 loan, not knowing that soon he would end up charging 50% of hidden fees and 240% interest on that loan. Another target was a school librarian named Mary Oram. She invested over $50,000 of her money she saved over 25 years working in a high school. When the time came, she was promised a 6 to 8% annual profit and hoped it would keep her out of a nursing home. Now, she's lost all but $6,000, one of the thousands who had lost money. Meanwhile, Scott lived a lavish lifestyle in an exclusive gated community, a $4.8 million mansion overlooking the Pacific Ocean just south of LA. He spent a lot of his money on the house and paid for the pool maintenance, furniture, and carpets, HOA fees, and a custom painter for the place. I guess they say a man's home is his castle. After months of trying to track Scott down, the FBI found him living out of a rented house and eating at IHOP in San Diego as a man named Russell Armstrong. Scott had stolen an ID from a man who had died in 2018. They think he had used cash to stay in hotels for a while before renting the home. When Scott was arrested, they charged him with conspiracy to commit wire fraud and mail fraud. they found that his scheme had affected people across 25 states. On August 18, 2022, he was sentenced to 10 years and was ordered to pay $501 million in restitution and penalties. Although most people often never see their money again, we hope it doesn't take too long to liquidate Scott's assets so the people who were scammed by him can have justice for the fraud committed. Click to watch one of these next videos. A genie pops out of a bottle and says to choose 2 out of 3 options. Take $20 million in cash, keep 6 of your toes, keep half your teeth. Let us know in the comments section which 2 options you're choosing.